The fall of Zenith Station, the warning that came too late. The alarm systems screamed through Zenith Station like wounded animals. Captain Elena Morrison sprinted down the corridor, her boots pounding against metal floors, as emergency lights bathed everything in crimson. She had been a soldier for 15 years, fought in 3 border conflicts, and survived situations that would break most people. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. The Krolix Empire had finally made their move. For months, humanity had ignored the warnings from their frontier scouts. The insectoid aliens had been gathering forces in the dark regions beyond map space, building an armada that defied comprehension. Now that armada was here, and it was unstoppable, Elena reached the command center and immediately wished she hadn't. The holographic display showed a nightmare. Hundreds of Krolix bioships surrounded their position, each one the size of a small moon. They pulsed with organic light, living vessels that grew rather than being built. Behind them, thousands more vessels stretched into the darkness like a swarm of locusts. "Captain, we've lost contact with New Terra Colony," Lieutenant James Park reported, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "Santiago Station went silent 3 minutes ago. The outer rim is gone. All of it." Elena felt her stomach drop. The outer rim contained 42 colonies, home to nearly 8 billion people. 8 billion lives just erased from existence in less than an hour. How long until they reach us? She asked, though she already knew the answer wouldn't be good. 18 minutes. Maybe 20 if we're lucky. The impossible choice. Elena looked around the command center at her crew. 63 people remained on Zenith Station. 63 souls who trusted her to save them. The evacuation ships had already fled, packed beyond capacity with civilians. There was no escape for those who stayed behind to buy time for the others. She pulled up the tactical map, searching desperately for any option they'd missed. That's when she saw it. A small notation on an uncharted planet in the neighboring system. Classification: Anomaly 7. Notes: Artificial structures detected. Archaeological survey recommended. Status: low priority. Park, what do we know about this planet? Elena pointed to the marker. The lieutenant frowned, pulling up the limited data. Not much, Captain. Scout probe passed through 6 months ago. Detected some ruins. Ancient civilization long dead. Command tagged it for future exploration, but with the war ... He trailed off. There was no future exploration. There might not be a future at all, but something about that planet called to Elena. Call it instinct, desperation, or divine inspiration. But she felt it in her bones. Whatever was on that world might be their only chance. Set course for Anomaly 7. Maximum speed. Her crew stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "Captain, that's the wrong direction," Park said carefully. "The evacuation route is toward the inner colonies. If we go to that planet, we're trapped." "We're already trapped, Lieutenant. The Krolix ships are faster than us. They'll catch the evacuation fleet within hours. But maybe, just maybe, there's something on that planet that can help us. Something those ancient builders left behind." It was a desperate gamble based on nothing but intuition. But Elena had learned to trust her gut. It had kept her alive this long. The Forge world, the planet, loomed before them. A world of rust-red deserts and towering mountain ranges. As Zenith Station entered orbit, their sensors went wild with readings. The entire planet was artificial, a massive construct disguised as a natural world. Beneath the surface, power sources still hummed with energy after countless millennia. "Captain, I'm detecting a signal," the communications officer called out. "It's repeating in multiple languages. Some I recognize from the ancient database. It's a warning and an invitation. Play it." A voice filled the command center, speaking in Old Terran, the language of Earth's early space age. The translation appeared on their screens. To those who find this world in their darkest hour, we were the architects, builders of wonders, defenders of the innocent. We fell to an enemy that consumed all in its path. But before we died, we built an answer. An army that would never tire, never surrender, never abandon those in need. If you face extinction, if hope is lost, descend to the forge. Wake our children. Let them finish the war we could not. Elena felt chills run down her spine. Take us down. Landing coordinates on that largest structure. The Krolloks would be here soon. They had minutes at best. But as their ship descended through the atmosphere, Elena saw what the architects had built. Cities of metal that stretched to the horizons. Factories the size of mountains. And in the center of it all, a fortress that touched the clouds. The Chamber of Guardians they ran through corridors that hadn't seen life in 3,000 years. Yet lights activated as they passed, responding to their presence. The architects had built this place to last, to wait for someone who needed it desperately enough to find it. The chamber they found took their breath away. It stretched for kilometers in every direction, filled with row upon row of motionless figures. They stood 3 meters tall, humanoid in shape, but clearly mechanical. Their armor gleamed despite the ages, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and flow. At the center stood a platform with a crystalline control panel. Ancient text scrolled across its surface, automatically translating to modern Terran as Elena approached. Guardians of the Forge, created to protect, to defend, to fight when others cannot. We gave them our memories, our knowledge, our very souls. They are us transformed. They are our legacy. Place your hand upon the heartstone. Let them judge if your cause is worthy. Elena hesitated. Behind her, Park was monitoring their sensors. Captain, Krollock ships entering orbit. We have maybe 5 minutes. Asterisk 5 minutes until 8 billion refugees died. 5 minutes until humanity's last hope was extinguished. Elena had fought her whole life to protect people. She'd given everything to her duty. Now, in this ancient chamber, surrounded by sleeping warriors from a dead civilization, she had one final choice to make. She placed her hand on the crystal. The awakening power surged through the platform and into her. For a moment, Elena wasn't alone in her own mind. Thousands of voices spoke at once, not in words but in feelings, memories, intentions. The architects showed her their fall, their desperation, their hope. They had been a peaceful people who built wonders. Then the Devourers came, an enemy that consumed everything in its path. Just like the Krolloks, the architects had transformed themselves, uploading their consciousness into mechanical bodies. They became weapons to fight an enemy that could not be defeated by conventional means. But they activated too late. Their world fell before they could turn the tide. So they slept, waiting for others who would face the same darkness. The voices spoke as one. Your cause is worthy. Your people face extinction. We will fight. The crystal flared with brilliant light. Throughout the massive chamber, millions of eyes opened simultaneously. The Guardians stirred, moving for the first time in 3 millennia. Their movements were fluid, graceful, almost alive despite their mechanical nature. One stepped forward, larger than the others, its frame decorated with markings of leadership. When it spoke, its voice was surprisingly gentle. I am Sentinel Prime, commander of the Forge Legion. We have slept in darkness, waiting for this moment. The enemy is above. We feel their presence. They are the Devourers reborn. The Guardians' eyes blazed brighter. They will learn why the architects built us. Elena found her voice. Can you stop them? The Krolloks' fleet is enormous. We are 10 million strong, each of us a warrior who chose to become a weapon. We cannot be killed, for we are already dead. We cannot surrender, for we remember what surrender means. Sentinel Prime raised one arm, and throughout the chamber, millions of Guardians responded. "We will stop them. Captain Elena Morrison. This we vow." The fortress shook as the Guardians activated ancient launch systems. Massive doors opened across the planet's surface, and from the Forge world, an army rose on pillars of blue fire, ascending to meet the Krolix fleet that had never known defeat. Elena watched from the command center as 10 million warriors filled the space between planets. The Krolix hesitated, perhaps sensing something they'd never encountered before. Then they attacked, and the universe learned what vengeance looked like when wrapped in steel. The age of humanity's helplessness had ended. The Guardians had awakened, and they remembered how to fight. Asterisk. Rise of the Steel Brotherhood. The battle, above the space around the Forge world, transformed into a storm of fire and light. Captain Elena Morrison watched from Zenith Station's command center as the Guardians met the Krolix fleet head-on. What she witnessed defied everything she knew about warfare. The Krolix fought like they always did, with overwhelming numbers and savage ferocity. Their bioships launched millions of fighter organisms, living creatures bred for killing. They swarmed through space like angry hornets, dissolving ship hulls with acidic weapons and tearing through armor with razor-sharp claws. But the Guardians were something else entirely. They moved through the void without ships, their bodies equipped with ancient technology that bent gravity itself. Some flew in formations that seemed random, but were actually perfectly coordinated. Others moved so fast, they appeared as blue streaks of light, impossible to track or target. The larger Guardians projected energy shields that protected smaller units, while specialized machines broadcast signals that disrupted the Krolix hive coordination. "Captain, the Guardians are destroying Krolix vessels at a rate of 500 per minute, Lieutenant Park reported, his voice filled with awe. "I've never seen anything like this. They're not just fighting, they're adapting. Every time the Krolix try a new tactic, the Guardians counter it within seconds." Elena zoomed in on one section of the battle. A Guardian she recognized as Sentinel Prime was engaging a Krolix command ship the size of a city. The massive biovessel fired organic missiles that could crack planets, but Prime moved between them like a dancer, his movements graceful despite his mechanical form. He reached the ship's hull, and his hands transformed into blazing energy blades. With surgical precision, he carved through the vessel's vital organs. "Killing it from within." The voice of the ancients, Captain Morrison. The voice came through their communication system, calm despite the raging battle outside. It was Sentinel Prime. "The enemy's main fleet is broken. But this is only their vanguard. More will come. Many more." Elena's brief moment of hope flickered. "How many more?" "Our scans detect 17 additional fleets converging on human space. The Krolix have committed their full strength to your extinction. What we face now is perhaps 1% of their total forces." The command center fell silent. Even with the Guardians, even with this impossible victory, humanity still faced overwhelming odds. "Then we've only delayed the inevitable," Elena said quietly. "No." Prime's voice carried absolute certainty. "You have given us purpose. The architects built us to protect life, to stand against those who would devour the innocent. For 3,000 years we slept, our purpose unfulfilled. Now we have a chance to finish what our Creator started. But we cannot do this alone. What do you need from us? Your courage, your creativity, your determination to survive." Prime paused. The architects were brilliant, but they thought in patterns in logic and mathematics. Humans think differently. You improvise. You hope when logic says there is none. You create solutions where none should exist. Together, we can be more than either of us alone. Elena looked at her crew, exhausted, terrified, but still fighting, still hoping. What's your plan, Sentinel Prime? To forge alliance over the next hours. A strategy emerged that would have seemed impossible days before. The Guardians possessed weapons and technology beyond humanity's comprehension, but they had been asleep for millennia. The galaxy had changed. The Krolix fought differently than the ancient Devourers. New tactics were needed. Elena and her command staff worked alongside Guardian strategists, combining human flexibility with mechanical precision. They identified weaknesses in Krolix coordination patterns. They developed new attack formations that used Guardian speed with human unpredictability. They created joint units where human pilots flew alongside Guardian warriors, each covering the other's weaknesses. The Guardians began retrofitting human ships with their ancient technology. Energy shields that could withstand planet-killing weapons. Propulsion systems that bent space itself. Weapons that could disintegrate matter at the molecular level. Zenith Station transformed from a dying outpost into a fortress that could challenge entire fleets. But more importantly, something unexpected happened. The Guardians and humans began to understand each other. "You are not like the architects," Sentinel Prime told Elena during a planning session. "They were peaceful, gentle, and slow to anger. Humans are warriors by nature, always fighting something, even if it's just your own limitations. Yet you also love fiercely, dream impossibly, and refuse to accept defeat. It's chaotic and illogical, and absolutely magnificent." Elena smiled tiredly. The architects gave up their bodies to become weapons. That's a kind of courage we humans can barely imagine. You carry the memories of an entire civilization. Every Guardian is someone who chose to sacrifice everything to protect others. That's more than magnificent. That's heroic. Prime's optical sensors brightened, a gesture Elena had learned meant pleasure or appreciation. "Perhaps we are not so different after all, Captain. Both our peoples understand sacrifice. Both refuse to let darkness win without a fight." They counterattacked when the second Krolix fleet arrived, expecting easy prey. They found something very different waiting for them. At the combined human Guardian forces struck with devastating precision. Human pilots flew modified fighters that moved like lightning, supported by Guardian warriors who could tear through bioships with their bare hands. Zenith Station, now equipped with architect weapons, fired beams of coherent energy that vaporized Krolix vessels before they could react. But it was the coordination that made the difference. Humans provided creativity and unpredictability. Guardians provided discipline and overwhelming power. Together, they fought with the synergy that neither could achieve alone. Commander Sarah Chun, leading a squadron of hybrid fighters, found herself flying in formation with a Guardian named Swift. The mechanical warrior communicated in rapid data bursts that her ship's computer translated instantly. They moved as one unit. Chun's intuition combined with Swift's processing power, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. 3 Krolix destroyers. "Heading 270, Chun called out. "Acknowledged." "Recommend Feint Maneuver Alpha 7, Swift responded. "Too predictable. Let's try something they won't expect." Chun grinned inside her helmet. "Follow my lead." What followed was a maneuver that broke every rule of conventional tactics. Chun flew straight at the enemy destroyers, then at the last second spun her fighter in an impossible spiral. Swift adapted instantly, his mechanical form twisting in ways no organic could survive. Both of them weaving through enemy fire like needles, through cloth. The Krolix, expecting logical attack patterns, couldn't adjust fast enough. Chun and Swift tore through their formation, destroying all 3 ships in seconds. "Your tactical choices defy probability calculations," Swift observed. "Yet they work consistently." "How?" Chun laughed. "It's called flying by the seat of your pants, Swift. Sometimes the best plan is to do something so crazy the enemy doesn't see it coming." "Fascinating. I believe I am beginning to understand why Sentinel Prime values human cooperation. The turning tide over the following weeks, the war shifted. What began as humanity's darkest hour transformed into something the Krolloks had never experienced. Resistance that couldn't be crushed, that the Guardians didn't need food, sleep, or rest. They could fight continuously for years if necessary. But they learned from their human allies the value of morale, of hope, of fighting for something beyond simple survival. Human soldiers inspired the ancient warriors with their determination to protect not just their own lives, but their families, their dreams, their future. Asterisk. In return, the Guardians gave humanity something it had lost, the belief that they could win. Colonies that had been cut off and awaiting certain death suddenly found Guardian forces arriving through dimensional portals. Ancient architect technology that could cross vast distances instantly. Refugee fleets were protected by mechanical warriors who never tired. Worlds under siege received weapons and shields that turned them into fortresses. The Krolloks, for the first time in their long history of conquest, began to falter. They had defeated 17 civilizations through overwhelming numbers and savage persistence. But they had never faced an enemy that could match their endurance while exceeding their adaptability. New dawn 6 months after the awakening. Captain Elena Morrison stood on the bridge of the newly christened Guardian's Hope, a massive battleship that combined human engineering with architect technology. Around her, the combined fleet prepared for what would be the decisive battle. The Krolloks had committed their entire remaining force to one final assault. Every bioship, every warrior organism, every weapon they possessed was converging on Earth itself. It was all or nothing for both sides. Sentinel Prime materialized on the bridge through a dimensional portal, his towering form somehow seeming comfortable in the human-designed space. The enemy comes in numbers beyond counting, Captain. This will be the greatest battle of this age. Elena looked at the tactical display, showing countless red markers approaching their position. Can we win? Alone? No? Together? Prime's optical sensors brightened. The architects used to have a saying, metal can be broken, but the spirit endures. They became metal to save their spirit, but lost both. You humans showed us that spirit and metal can coexist, can strengthen each other. The answer to your question is yes. Together, we will win. Throughout the fleet, 10 million Guardians and 5 million human soldiers prepared for battle. They had learned each other's strengths, covered each other's weaknesses, and forged something new from the ashes of two nearly destroyed civilizations. The Krolloks' fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a locust swarm, filling space with bioships that numbered in the millions. They expected terror. They expected surrender. They expected easy victory. Instead, they found an alliance of iron and determination, of ancient wisdom and human creativity, of mechanical precision and organic adaptability. The final stand, the battle that followed, would be remembered for generations. Humans and Guardians fought side by side, each protecting the other, each inspiring the other to greater acts of courage. When human ships ran low on ammunition, Guardian warriors provided cover. When Guardian units faced overwhelming numbers, human pilots drew fire away with daring maneuvers. Lieutenant James Park, now commanding his own destroyer, found himself defending a Guardian engineering corps that was repairing a damaged space station. 50 Krolloks fighters swarmed his position. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and out of options. Then a voice came through his communications. Commander Park, this is Guardian Unit Forge 77. We have completed repairs and are now mobile. Permission to assist? Park grinned despite the desperate situation. Permission granted. Let's show these bugs why they should have stayed home. The space station transformed, ancient weapons emerging from hidden ports. Combined with Park's ship, they turned the tide of that small battle. It was a scene repeated across the battlefield thousands of times. Humans and Guardians, each saving the other, each refusing to let their allies fall. When the last Krallick's command ship finally fled, its fleet shattered beyond recognition, both species knew that something fundamental had changed. They had not just survived, they had prevailed. And in doing so, they had created something new, a promise kept in the aftermath. As repair crews worked alongside Guardian engineers to rebuild what had been damaged, Elena stood with Sentinel Prime overlooking Earth from orbit. The blue planet hung peaceful in the darkness, unaware of how close it had come to extinction. The architects would be proud, Elena said quietly. You fulfilled their purpose. You protected the innocent. You stopped the devourers. We did more than that, Prime replied. We found what the architects lost. They sacrificed their bodies, believing they would become pure weapons. But weapons without purpose are just tools. You gave us purpose. You reminded us that we were once people who loved, who hoped, who dreamed. We are still those people, just wearing different forms. Elena smiled. And you reminded us that we're not alone. That even in the darkest hour, even when all hope seems lost, there might be someone waiting in the darkness to help us. You were humanity's miracle, and humanity was ours. Prime's voice carried warmth despite its mechanical tone. The architects built us to fight. You taught us why to fight. That is the greater gift. As the sun rose over Earth, casting light across a planet that would see another day, the alliance between humanity and the Guardians was formalized. Not as master and servant, not as creator and creation, but as equals. As partners. As brothers and sisters forged in the fires of desperation and tempered by shared victory. The mechanical Legion had awakened to save humanity. But in the process, humanity had saved them too, reminding ancient warriors what it meant to be more than weapons, what it meant to be people again. The galaxy would face new threats. New challenges would emerge. But now, facing the darkness would be an alliance of flesh and steel, of human creativity and Guardian strength, of two civilizations that had found each other in their darkest hours and chosen to stand together. The age of isolation had ended. The age of the Steel Brotherhood had begun. And the universe would never be the same. The end asterisk.